And now, coming to you from the Pensado Media Center, powered by Westlake Pro.
Hey guys, a couple of tired Pensado Place guys here. Day one of NAMM is over. It was amazing. If you get a chance, come down. Remember, 1 to 2 at the Avid booth, downstairs in the new building, upstairs NAMM Jam from 4 to 6. Tomorrow's going to be a really good day. We had a great show we taped before NAMM. We want to share it with you now. Enjoy Fred Vogler. Sound design is just such a fascinating aspect of audio. It incorporates lots of different things. The sound designers we know come from different places. You're getting ready to meet one of the best. I mean, just think about the Hollywood Bowl and what that sound environment is known for around the world, which is a pristine thing. Here's a guy who has a lot to do with it. Meet Fred Vogler.
Fred.
Very nice
Welcome,
to meet you guys.
Amigo.
Thanks for
honored to be here and a little overwhelmed.
Oh no, relax.
Usually I feel like I'm,
We'll fix
pushing
that
audio
real fast.
Usually I feel like I'm the one pushing for audio, and you guys are like the gale storm. So fantastic.
So, define from your perspective sound design.
Well, I think sound design has 3 main kind of different types. There's a cinematic, in the movies you have somebody who creates a whole atmosphere in the jungle and the space station, sound designer, and then you have a theatrical sound design. So if you're a Cirque du Soleil show or if you're a show on Broadway, there's a designer who's put together all of the, whether the phone rings or the sound of the specific voice circles around. Live sound design is really part of the performance of a venue or performance that occurs, in real time, and some of it you do in advance, and some of it you just have to be quick on your feet and you have to respond quickly.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Changes.
I know very little about this world, so I'll admit that going forward. I always thought sound design was explosions and burps and car crash noises.
Well, it's the cinematic, yeah.
So that's the cinematic sound design. Yeah. What's the equivalent in the live world?
Well, you have to look at a venue and you have to determine the coverage desired, and you have to determine the program that's going to be performed and featured. You have to look at issues like neighborhoods. Sure. Like the Hollywood Bowl, we have a lot of neighbors. Yep. And, they're not too wild about hearing sound, late at night in their homes. Yep. Sometimes I've done some festival stuff, I've done some stuff at other venues, and when it's indoor, the issues are more acoustical. Right. You have reflective surfaces, you have a ceiling, you have sidewalls, you have stage, you have other competing elements. But when it's outdoor, then you have to consider all the environment.
External elements. Do you, on the live side, is it an advantage, or does it ever come up where you get involved in the rehearsal part, the preparatory part, so that when it's actually being put on stage, you've had a chance to figure out things, work things out with the group, timing, cues, stuff like that?
Well, that's the creative part of it, and that's the part that's the most fun. I mean, it's great to be part of the design team, the team that's putting together the elements that are going to promote, the art or the performer. And so, there are occasions where, like the Star Wars in Concert tour that we did some years ago, I was approached by one of the producers. Hey, I want this to be rock and roll levels of orchestra, but nothing is going to be playback. It's all going to be live, and it's orchestral, and there's no synth. There's just only acoustic instruments. Wow! And we want it to thump. And one of the producers was Tom Petty's tour manager. Sure. And so I knew he wanted it loud, and my goal was to match that or to meet the expectations. So, the fortunate thing in sound design or live sound design is you often get to work with the manufacturers directly. I'm not working, on my own. There's a team of people that get kind of assigned. We pick a manufacturer. Manufacturers have a lot of smart and creative types around them, typically, especially the better ones. And we get to go out and look at what is the goal of this production.
What is it about the Walt Disney Concert Hall that gives it a reputation for being difficult to sound design? What would make it different than the Hollywood Bowl?
Well, Walt Disney was built for acoustic music. The the distances from the reflective surfaces, the density of the surfaces, the shape of the surfaces, and the floor type all contribute to challenges. For instance, the floor is meant to act as a membrane. It's hollow underneath. There's a cavity below the stage. The wood itself is a softwood. So when a cellist or a bass player stick the end pin of their instrument into the stage, it's supposed to be like a timpani or like a drum.
Doesn't create phase problems?
Well, not for the orchestra. For the orchestra, it creates this full, rich, low frequency because it's got the bigger surface that's resonating.
That's pretty cool.
But when you put a kick drum on there or you put an amplified bass on there, suddenly it's also creating a thump thump, and it sometimes competes. Well, it often competes with elements that you don't want to be masked. It can get kind of muddy.
How do you solve that?
Well, we've done unimaginable things, but a lot of success. Yeah, well, we've gone through crazy configurations and different types of speakers, and talked to a lot of folks about what to do. We have to deaden those surfaces, and the closer you are to the surface that's causing you problems, the better. So we put carpet on the stage. We have these sound absorptive panels that circle, and these things are, serious panels. They have compressed fiberglass foam and acoustic wrapping. Yeah, 703 type material, pretty thick on either side, and they're configured close to drums or close to the bass. We put isolators underneath amplified sources, and then we have curtains in the corners. We have, we've tuned or aimed the PA to be, absolutely as directive as possible on the people, not on the walls and stuff.
Is software also your friend and those kinds of things, or different tools you have, or is it mostly physical? What kind of software?
Well, there's a lot of, each manufacturer makes a software that's predictive or renders the, kind of environment. I'm sort of get kind of crotchety about that stuff because the manufacturers give you these pretty pictures that show, this great distribution, but a lot of times they're not capable of showing all of the reflective surfaces, all the dimensions that can be
plus the time
problematic.
Components.
Well, a lot of them are in an open field too. They're not in an environment where, it becomes a challenge for articulation and clarity. So if you and I were talking here, Disney, there's a reflective surface. There's my direct sound of my voice. There's a surface here that reflects. At the concert hall, there's a ceiling that that has a reflection. There's surfaces from the sides. So just in one moment, you could have 5 arrivals, 6 arrivals, right? Now, when you start pushing it, like you take a snare drum and you hit a snare drum in there, it's going to start to show up all these different places, and it's going to hit surfaces and come back, intended that way by the acoustician. So the acoustician designed it so that a string instrument or a woodwind instrument or something like that will naturally sound bigger than life. I mean, so you feel like, wow, I've never heard an orchestra or a natural sound like that. But when you amplify something, you're hitting surfaces that are coming back, you're creating arrival times. And as an audience member, if you get 6 to 8 arrival times, just a little delay times between them, it's okay. But once it starts getting to the 10 and 12, you start losing intelligibility and clarity. And then you start competing, like, what did they say? I didn't hear what they said. And so you have to overcome those arrival times, and you have to be really judicious in how you
Do they
bring
tend
up
to be
elements.
at certain frequencies, like the mid-range?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think low frequencies are your biggest challenge in there because of the boom, and they start to muddy everything. It's almost, you have to reverse engineer when you go into Disney or an acoustic like that. You have to start with nothing amplified, and you bring up things. I can tell the engineers that come in that are going to have the biggest trouble because they start with that kick, and it's like bam, 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 and suddenly I'm thinking, uh-oh, it's going to be a problem, because if you're going to try to get your kick at 98 or 100 decibels, you're never going to get vocals. I mean, it just won't happen. You're going to have to start with almost nothing.
Do they ever bring their own PAs that you have to integrate with yours?
Not
They do that
typically.
at the bowl sometimes.
Well, we've frowned on that in the last 15 years. Yeah, there was a time period where PAs were brought in or were allowed to kind of supplement. We get subs, and low frequency has become a big push, as you know, in live shows. And, It's good and bad. I mean, I think that it's engaging for the audience, but it's pretty heavy. It wears me out.
You're talking about those classical guys and their subs, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. That Mahler hits
that
the
double bass,
drum.
man.
Yeah, you can't hit it like that.
With it. Yeah,
that
absolutely.
timpani guy
Exactly.
just won't cut loose.
With all the obvious expertise that you have, somewhere along in your journey, there's been a recording engineer, mixing engineer, recording kind of background. There's just
Absolutely.
You can't do what you're talking about, what you've been talking about doing without having
Well, in musicianship, I played piano and I played guitar, and I always wanted to be. I was in
Musicianship,
bands.
you're a rocker.
Well,
you're an ex-rocker.
Basically, I think most of us are in our hearts, right? And we have that, desire.
IR1 too.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's interesting that I wanted to make records more than anything. I fell in love with George Martin's work, and listened to a lot of recorded music through the 70s and 80s, and I was the first guy to grab the record and read the liner notes and see who was on, doing what.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I'm so ignorant to today's pop, producers and engineers, because I don't have the record to look at and to read.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to go home, grab something to drink, put the record on and listen head to tail and read the notes, and I'd turn it over again and listen to the second listening, and I'd pick out things. And I still listen to records. I was listening to records last night, listening to some Brecker Brothers, listening to some Keith Jarrett, listening to some Earth, Wind and Fire.
Don't do that.
The Dude, I listened to Quincy
that's
Jones.
a big record for me.
And I listen to records, and I have a loudness button on my.
Stop doing that, because the more you do that, the less you're going to hear the new stuff.
Well, they're on the Brecker Brothers back on the. Maybe it was on the inside, but there was a picture of the LPs at head height. They weren't set down on the ground or in some closet over here. They were on a shelf like that. And I told my wife, "That's what I want. I want to have my records available like that. I want to be able to pull out." And I listen to classic. I listen to opera. I listen to pop, jazz.
My mom's named after an opera.
Oh, really? Which one?
Aida.
Aida. Okay. Very.
What from the live experience, to extend Herb's question, what did you take from the live experience that's enhanced your ability to record and mix classical music for records and radio?
Well, the interesting thing is that, when you're making records or you're recording, I came from the school of few mics in the right position. There was the Telarc approach, or there was the approach where you would try to really understand the acoustic and understand the source. And you learn mic technique. I started with, single mics, spaced mics, spaced omnis, ORTFs, and cardioids and different configurations. And you start learning how a mic's going to behave, whether it's a Sennheiser or a Shep or a Neumann or an AKG. And in that environment, it's so critical. I mean, we were more audiophile based. That was the group that I was with. I had a record company for 10 years. We recorded LA classical musicians, and had minimal distribution and minimal success. But I enjoyed it, and you could really spend the time listening to what you're capturing. It wasn't also on a day where you could drag a bunch of stuff, because most of my recordings were done in churches or some kind of performance venue. It wasn't in a studio. When I go into studios, and there's a ceiling and there's some walls, and I have to deal with surfaces and stuff that are much closer. In a concert hall, the sound just goes that way. It doesn't come back, or it comes back much later. In fact, I could put up hall mics and record the ambience. I didn't have to manufacture ambience in those days.
I'm not trying to be flippant or sarcastic or anything, but I can't say I have a lot of background in classical music. I did hear a lot as a child, and I like a lot of it. What's it going to take for classical music to appeal to today's generation, and what's it going to take to not have it be subsidized by governments? I mean, it's a music that should be widely received and understood, but yet it's not. What's the impediment? Is it teaching music in schools? Is it that the fact that you hear a record 40 years ago and it sounds like a record today? What is it?
Well, I think that's something a lot of people would like to know the answer to.
It could be all the above, maybe.
Presentation has a lot to do with it. We at the Hollywood Bowl, I came in, you were saying, what do you take from the record industry? Well, I mic things because I have done some film scoring, and I've done things where I have to multitask. So when we do production at the Bowl, and let's say it's an orchestral-based production, and it's more pops orchestra, it's not just standard orchestra, we'll have 130, 140 mics on stage, one rehearsal. And so because the night before we did a jazz concert, I don't know if you're familiar with the schedule, but typically it's Tuesdays and Thursdays are LA Philharmonic, Wednesdays are jazz, Fridays and Saturdays are pops orchestra, Sundays are world music, Mondays are often lease events where we have a rock show, and then we go back to classical. And the classical is at 10 a.m. after the rock show's completed from the night before. So there's not a lot of room to goof off, so I see a lot of productions. I'm probably seeing 180, 200 shows a year of varied types. Some of them I'm mixing, some of them I'm just overseeing and making sure that there's no issues or that people need something. And the classical, I take sort of this, I understand that we're maintaining an art form, keeping the purists happy, but I also want sensibilities that allow us to pull it in a little bit to make it more engaging as an audience. Because younger people, the orchestra is sort of like a community. It's not really a bunch of stiffs that are playing these ancient instruments.
It can be though.
It seems that way a lot of times. And when I first got involved because I was on a path I was at A&M. I did an internship at A&M, and I was pushing the food and coffee cart around and stuff like that back in the mid 80s. And then I was doing something at the KUSC radio station, classical. And I looked at those two worlds because I was it was back when also internships were more popular and more available. And I looked and I said, I kind of like this one because I know when it's going to be done. I know I got a start time and a finish time. I can go back and work on my music or play some, with some of my bros. This one is unpredictable when you're working in the studios and you're there until the artist says you're going home or until the producer or whoever is done with you. And, and it takes a while to get that opportunity to be actually doing something rather than putting, Cheez-Its or something in the bowl for everybody. And I think that the classical community, you've got a variety of people in those orchestras, and they listen to contemporary music. They're trying to do new things with the sound. They're not all sitting there listening to Beethoven or Mozart constantly. Some of them are doing contemporary sounds. And I saw bands that were playing their instruments with fruit or with vegetables. There was this, Cal Arts in town, does some pretty avant-garde stuff. Well, there was a quartet that remember they were playing like a cello with a carrot or with a celery stick or something at the end
I'm
of it.
not saying go that far.
Well, but I'm saying that people get turned on by a
Although it is
variety
vegan,
of things.
right?
Well, they
Vegan
put all
music.
those things in a drink, in a blender, and everybody drinks
After
from it.
they're done. Name me a couple of, if you can, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but can you tell me a couple of artists that I should listen to that are modern, but yet connected to the past that might be a gateway for the audience to come backwards into some of the music that we like?
Well, I would say Yo-Yo Ma. I
Okay.
mean, he's one of the greats. That was one of the great concerts we had last summer, in fact.
Okay.
He, has the Silk Road Ensemble, which brings talented, the highest levels of musicians from the globe, whether they're from Africa or Middle East or from Asia or Europe. And they play so well together. It's such a sense of ensemble. And then Yo-Yo last summer came out and did a solo, one instrument, just him cello playing 6 Bach cello suites. Now, first off, those are masterpieces, and they require super skill to play one of them or a couple of them. He played all 6 in succession, 17,000 people, and it was riveting. That was one of the great. I was really in it with him. It was me and him. I had the mics, and I get on the bandwagon sometimes about telling people, it's not the sound system. It's no more the sound system than it is that piano. That piano doesn't inherently make sound, right? The piano needs to be played, and who plays that piano is going to make the difference of what it sounds like. Now, if you have a good instrument, it's going to sound better than if it's a really ragged instrument, or if it's well tuned or maintained. But I don't tune. I don't sit there and make the speakers. I listen to them. We get the equalization of them, but we use it as a tool to bring out the sound. And Yo-Yo's certainly somebody that you could listen to. There's Edgar Meyer, bass player, and he
Say
does
it again.
Edgar Meyer,
M-A or M-E?
M-E.
Okay.
And he does, kind of a folky Americana improvisational, as well as, legit classical stuff. And there's ensembles which are younger people that are as engaged as any of the rock and rollers that I see. It's just, it's kind of breaking out of the stigma of what the interpretation people have about, classical.
It also feels like there's not a central sort of messaging place where people can go, oh, I discovered that here, and I can relate to that, and it's not, I wouldn't know where to go to find that messaging or to find Edgar Meyer or whatever the case may be. So,
I'd say come to the Hollywood Bowl.
Well, I was going to say,
and hook up. I mean, in fact, one of my
You shouldn't have said that to Herb. He'll come.
one of the things that I've promoted, because I have a lot of record buddies. Al Schmidt,
Sure.
I love Al.
Ed Cherney,
Sure.
or
All
Alan
buddies.
Side. So these guys are buddies, and I've said, what I really want is a producers and engineers night when we're tuning the system, or when we have the system up and there's no audience. And I just want to bring my cats around to say, listen, because live sounds come a long way. People, maybe 25 years ago, there was a certain kind of sound you would get, and you didn't have too much expectation. But I'll tell you, the technology and the increase in technology has been tremendous in the last 10 or 15 years. And I don't think people realize the quality or the resolution that's capable. And I tell my engineer buddies, and wouldn't that be cool to do a Pensado's place at the Hollywood Bowl one night with
Sure
just
would be.
engineer and producer types, and just play stuff that we all have listened to, or that someone feels really solid about and they want to hear it on a PA like that?
We go on location.
I want to do this.
So we should talk about that.
I'm pushing on this.
Well, it's funny. I was going to ask the most important question of the interview, which was, do we call you for free tickets to the Hollywood Bowl?
I told you.
It's funny. I tell people all the time, man, if I can hook you up, I will. If I can't, just don't
Gotcha.
take it the wrong
Gotcha.
way.
It just is.
I say,
good situation by
I'm
situation.
really interested in keeping my colleagues,
Yes.
informed and part of it.
And they're not informed enough. I mean, this will
really-
be
because,
this will
the-
be refreshing to them.
The great thing is that the live stage is the great equalizer. You walk out on stage and, hey, you got it or you don't got it.
And I'll tell you something else. We have a couple of schools that are sponsors, and one of them, the Blackbird Academy, one of the places that is the most proactive for them for placements and for people working is in the live space.
Absolutely.
And that is, because the studio space is now a different animal completely. So,
Well, John McBride's a buddy too.
Yeah, he's our
come
buddy.
on. Is there anybody
he's a-
more passionate than
That's
John
what I'm about to
patron
say.
saint of our
I
show.
love that guy.
He's the patron saint of the show.
And what he's done with Blackbird,
Amazing.
and when he's been around, I just love to have him around.
Same here.
His
Same
energy
here.
is so positive.
If he's around, he's going to be helping you at the board, though.
Oh, for sure.
If he's in a 5-county area, he'll
said
be
bring it
there if he
on.
hears feedback.
No, it's great.
Yeah, I always solicit my engineer buddies, for advice. You get a lot of unsolicited advice doing live sound. I'm just going to
I'm
warn
sure.
everybody if they
Yeah, for
think,
sure.
oh, I want to get in a live sound. Well, just have a thick skin, because everybody that comes by has two jobs, their job and sound, and everyone's going to tell you, hey, I didn't
Our
hear
award
the such
show
and
is
such,
brutal for that. It's just constantly. Try doing an award show for audio folks.
Oh, yeah.
It is brutal.
Now you got everybody's
Every minute. Hey, roll off this. Oh, too much that. Louder.
That's true, isn't it?
All right, so now let's see. We got a rocker,
Hold on a second.
Who?
It's classical.
classical.
So
So you want
I got to neaten
absolutely.
up a little bit.
Yeah.
I think he's beyond classical. I think it's plus plus. All right, we've got a rocker guy here. Looks like an athlete, varied background. I think this is going to be incredible batter's box. Are you ready, sir? Your
I am
arms
ready.
warmed up?
I am ready.
All right, fire away.
Mr. Vogler, it is
Mr. Vogler.
Yeah, Mr. Vogler.
Because it's classical.
double bass,
Boom.
opera,
Verdi.
conductors,
Dudamel.
helicopters,
Yeah. Distraction.
Pain in the ass.
Yeah.
vocalists,
Temperamental.
violins.
High strung.
They're all bedwetters. LA County loudness limits.
Challenge.
Harder harder to do live sound for, a Motley Crue or LA Philharmonic?
For me personally, it's harder for Motley Crue.
Depends on venue.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay, this is a test. Offstage instruments,
You mean like
like harps and organs.
yeah, you mean instruments though that are
They're part of the show.
part of show off stage?
Yeah.
Engaging?
Okay. That's all I got. I tried as hard as I could.
What's your final go-to question?
I don't know if he has something he can carry home that's on
He
fire.
does. Well, you could ask.
Okay. If a venue around the world caught fire, which one would you be really, really, really the most unhappy about it catching fire?
Well, the bowl.
My foyer.
I tried her. I don't know how I got
No, I think he hit it on the park.
That's really bad.
The offstage instrument thing, it's like that happens a lot in your world where there'll be like a massive pipe organ off stage. I was just wondering how you integrate that without seeing it. Like a lot of live sound is seeing the performers, you know, as you well know, more than me. And I was wondering if there's a problem in integrating that into the show sonically without having it be there visually.
You know, there's been a lot of advances towards multi-channel systems. I mean, this is one of the things that maybe is a whole other topic, but at some point, I believe, and I know there's a wave of support from manufacturing stuff coming where there's not just going to be left-right arrays. You know, there are going to be multiple speakers, and it's not just quadraphonic. It's arrays that allow you to move the sound to those various locations. And so when you want something that sounds otherworldly or offstage, whether it's a chorus or it's an organ or it's a horn player, you could put it over here or you could put it over here and move it around, even in a large scale format like the Hollywood Bowl. You can do it in arenas more easily or at the concert hall more easily.
Right.
But I mean, I'm doing a recording in a few weeks where there's effects with the cellist. Actually, it's Yo-Yo Ma with the LA Philharmonic. And
You're recording Yo-Yo Ma?
yeah, we're recording.
Can you send us a video of that?
Wouldn't that be incredible?
Yeah.
I'm sure there's all sorts of other
there's gonna be
barriers, but
bureaucracy.
Yo-Yo's a fan of the show.
well, I believe it. I mean, he should be. But the
He's talking about the female rapper, Yo-Yo.
Man, I forgot about her.
oh no. Well, needless to say, there's exciting things coming. As I had said, you know, when I first came in, that I think 2018 is a good year, and I see more and more progression to audio importance. You know, it's not just lighting and video, it's sound is everything.
The
That's
tools
paramount.
are pretty amazing we have right now for live.
Yeah, and I would love, you know, to have you guys come down. So.
I was going to say, we should, keep talking about potentially getting a crew out there, and you take us through the Hollywood Bowl and show us how to do it.
Yeah, I mean, that would be fantastic.
we'd
I'd
love
love
to
to
do it.
see that.
This has been great, Fred. Thanks,
Fantastic.
man.
Yeah,
Well,
really
thank you
good.
very
Pleasure.
much. Like I
Enjoy
said,
it.
it's been my pleasure. So.
Well, thanks to Jonathan Deans and Westlake Pro. Dave, take us home.
Hey guys, you got to work a little bit to catch this. I'm gonna hit you with a metaphor, and be patient with me. When I was a little kid, there's so many quality foods I didn't like to eat. My father loved fancy restaurants, and I just wanted cheeseburgers whenever I'd go there. And the food that he ate, I did not like the taste. As I've gotten older, I've acquired a taste for things I didn't like. It took me a minute to trust the fact that I would like it, and I started eating mushrooms and Brussels sprouts and all these things. I think that's not unlike the classical world. It's not a go get a record, put it on, and fall in love with it. There's a certain amount of work that you need to put in terms of developing your taste for it. It's not an instant taste for some people, but as over time it can become your favorite taste. Now when I go to an expensive restaurant, I expect to spend $200 on food, not a cheeseburger, and it can happen for you too. So think about that metaphor. I think there's something there that might help you become a fan of classical music, and it's worth the experience. It truly is. See ya.
See ya.